Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Shelly Kurtz of Eagle Point Advisors and Dara Khosrowshahi of Uber.
Tough act to follow.
It is. Well, like Elmo, you're known usually by just one name, mostly because people can't pronounce your last name. But for those of you who do not know, this is Dara Khosrowshahi.
Perfect.
And I'm so excited to be here today. It's the one thing that my kids understand about the work I do. I said I'm interviewing the CEO of Uber, and even at 12, my son was excited about that. So
awesome.
Not quite Elmo, but you'll take it. But for aliens that maybe don't know what Uber is, how would you describe Uber as a company today? Would you say you're a tech company, a transportation logistics?
I'd say yes, but really a tech company. I mean, we started as a technology to build a black car service to some extent. But as we have built on top of that technology, we've moved from moving people, now then with opening Uber Eats, to moving food. Once we learn how to move food, well then we can move stuff, right? So we now have a grocery, we offer groceries, you can buy electronics from Best Buy on Uber Eats, or makeup, Sephora with Uber Eats as well. And then we've also gone in trucking
And wait,
as well.
hold on, don't you also have Uber Pets? Did I see that?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Uber Pets.
Yeah, it's very cool.
And I think I've been in a situation or two where I've tried to figure out how to get a gift or a package or a left behind item from point A to point B, and you can sort of...
There's a courier service
yes.
as well. You can basically move anything from point A to B. We're in trucking as well, which is we're connecting truckers with shippers. So that's first mile, and then obviously last mile with Uber Eats and our direct service. So to some extent, what has started as a black car service is now what we're looking to do is really build the next generation logistics network for your local city. You know, the vision of the company is to reimagine how the world moves for the better. And now we're looking to really build that next generation logistics company, getting people from point A to B or things from point A to B on demand in a convenient and affordable way, really for everybody.
I love that. So in years past, you know, I think we learned the acronym EV, but today we're talking about AV,
AVs, yeah.
Not audio visual, although we have plenty of great staff members behind here that would maybe differ, but AV is really autonomous vehicles, and Uber is leading the charge. And for the first time on this stage, we can really talk about something in present tense. It's here, it's in cities
Absolutely.
around the US and globally. So maybe you can just sort of start by sharing, where are you now? Where can you open your Uber app and book a car without a driver? And thinking about the global perspective, sort of, you know, where your sort of hotspots are, and maybe where we can expect to find a driverless car in the future.
Absolutely. So we work, the autonomous technology is a technology that's been worked on for the last 20 years. And it is finally ready for prime time. And we work with autonomous partners in the mobility space, in the delivery space, and in the trucking space today. And the rate of acceleration in terms of the development of the technology, the safety of the technology, is pretty extraordinary, and it's only going to accelerate. Where we are today is we're working with 20 partners across the ecosystem. And for example, in the US now, in Austin, in Atlanta, and Phoenix, you can use your Uber app to get a Waymo autonomous vehicle, pick you up and drop you off safely, delightfully. Our customers love it. So AV is happening in the US now in those 3 cities, and we will expand.
Okay, and so that was Austin,
Atlanta, and Phoenix.
And Phoenix,
that's happening today. And then also in the Middle East, in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, we're working with other partners testing out autonomous technology right now with a driver, safety driver behind the wheel. That driver will come out. So far so good in terms of testing and the safety efficacy. And then we are going to get into Europe as well. So in a few months, we'll be announcing our entree into Germany. And later in the year, towards next year, we're also going to expand in Asia as well. So stay tuned. Autonomous is happening now, and it's expanding all over the world.
Interesting. And how do you think about sort of your market space, do you look for a certain kind of climate from maybe a regulatory standpoint, or looking at the heat map of where Uber has maybe already created dominance and disruption, or are you looking for areas where maybe it's a laggard city where you have the opportunity to move in a new direction?
So part of what we bring to the autonomous ecosystem is a ready-made market and the incredible demand that our network brings in to this technology that has cost hundreds of billions of dollars to develop over many, many years. And you need that demand and you need that revenue in order to keep feeding the ecosystem and to bring investment into the ecosystem. So typically what we're looking for is, first, we've got to have the right regulatory framework. So it's a dialogue that we have with regulators. We think AVs can absolutely be, well, we know that AVs can be safer in terms of driving than human beings, right? They don't get distracted, they're not texting. Most of these AV models will have driven over 1,000 times the miles that you and I will ever drive. And every single mile is another learning opportunity for these AVs.
They don't have to take shift breaks. They can keep going.
They don't get tired,
yeah.
right? They do need to be recharged, but they don't get tired.
Fair point.
And the other, I think, really positive factor with AVs is that these AVs are by nature also electric. So I do think that in terms of where transportation is going, that transition to electric vehicles, for example, in the US, has lost some momentum. The momentum continues in Europe and many other parts of the world, but in certain parts of the world, the momentum has slowed down in terms of the EV transition. Well, we think that AVs can actually be another catalyst for EVs coming in as well. And those are the dialogues that we have with regulators. You know, what is the safety protocol? How do we think about expansion? What's the right pace, et cetera? And those are really, really important discussions for us to have with regulators. And then what we're looking for are usually markets where we have a presence, we have a strong network, because the demand that we bring really drives efficiency for these vehicles. They're very expensive. They often cost well over $100,000, and they cost, you know, there's a lot of data load on these vehicles as well. So you want these vehicles as highly utilized as possible. What's great is the driver doesn't get tired, but you want that driver to be busy all the time, and that's another benefit that we bring.
That's interesting. So one of the things you mentioned was Waymo, and I think that some people may think that Uber is actually doing the full supply chain, creating the vehicles, but in fact you're not manufacturing any vehicles, and you're sort of agnostic to the players in the ecosystem, sort of using your platform and building the technology and innovation on top of that. Can you talk a little bit about how that works? Are you seeing new entrants coming in, and how do they sort of connect with Uber?
Well, the ecosystem is incredibly dynamic, and what we have decided is what we're great at is building these transportation networks and reimagining how the world moves. And just like we want to bring human drivers safely onto the platform, we want to bring robot drivers safely onto the platform. And we see incredible innovation happening in the AV space. The onset of larger models, large language models, et cetera, you see the magic there kind of on the internet, ChatGPT, et cetera. A similar wave of development is happening with AV. These models can comprehend the real world in very, very advanced ways. And whereas the first generation of AV development was deterministic, you know, if you see a person crossing the street, then stop, for example. With these new AI models, these AI models can learn literally from watching people drive. And they can learn in a very, very human way. So we're seeing a whole host of development in AV. Obviously, Waymo is the industry leader. They started all of this, but there are many, many other companies in all over the world. A Wave in the UK, for example. WeRide, Pony, Baidu in China. There are a number of companies like Aurora and Wabi in trucking as well. And then also in terms of for food delivery, we have these little cute sidewalk robots now in LA. and you will have drone delivery as well. So the AV ecosystem is certainly very strong in the passenger vehicle space, but it is going from passenger vehicles to delivery of things to trucking as well, and we're in the very, very early days.
And how does the transportation grid benefit from this approach? I think about the gridlock that we have in cities like mine, Seattle, that could use a little bit more throughput. Is there a place in the future where you see the Jetsons sort of approach, where you just sort of, get in your robot car and fly? Or what do you see in terms of the benefits for the rider, for the city infrastructure, and how that plays out?
Well, I think the most important benefit is a safety benefit, right? Around the world, there are annually 1 million deaths from motor fatalities, one way or the other. And with the AV technology, we are seeing evidence that these robot drivers can be 5 times, even today, safer than human drivers. So what we're seeing is that superhuman safety is absolutely possible. And if it's not possible, I think all of us should push forward to get there. Safety is, I think, the number one cause. Second, what we talked about is electrification. Electrification of transportation is incredibly important. And ultimately, these vehicles are going to reduce the cost of transportation and make transportation available for everybody. One of our causes that we feel incredibly passionate about is to make sure that we bring on-demand transportation to areas of the city that aren't necessarily being served by mass transit, transportation deserts, if you want to call them. And so AVs will bring down the cost of transportation and will make that transportation available to a much wider swath of the city without the kind of logistical investment that you need for mass transit as well, which we think is a huge benefit. Ultimately, as the cost of any service comes down, the demand for that service is going to come up. So unless you really push sharing the vehicle, 2 or 3 people getting into vehicles or AV buses as well, then you will have congestion in the city, which no one likes. So ultimately, we think that the future that we see and we're trying to drive with AVs is that they're safe, they are electric, and ultimately shared as well is a newer development that we have to bring in over a period of time.
I love that. The sort of person that may not necessarily take a public bus may actually share an AV ride with someone from a long distance, commute situation.
And we've been investing in, Uber Share for more than one person to get into the vehicle, essentially with this vision in mind, which is as the cost comes down, demand goes up. As demand goes up, you have to have a relief valve, and the relief valve is getting more than one person in a car.
And you may be doing some matchmaking. Who knows? The person you're sharing your Uber with, maybe someone that could come into your life in a different way.
You never know.
So let's talk about impact. We just have a couple minutes left. We're here during the time that world leaders are gathering. It's the UN General Assembly time. And I'm just interested in how you are thinking about the big I of impact. You talked about some of these bespoke benefits in terms of environmental relief for the EV vehicles and the sort of transportation safety element. But are you tracking against specific sustainable development goals, or do you have a dashboard or a sort of a corporate citizenship approach that maybe you could share?
Yeah, I'd say the biggest for us are safety, obviously making sure that the Uber network is safe. For us, we want to make sure availability, we're available to everybody in a particular city, and now increasingly outside of the cities. And sustainability for us, the electrification of our fleet, so to speak, remains a very, very important goal. If you look at Uber drivers, they are switching to EVs 5 times faster than the average driver. And the Uber driver usually is driving 4 to 5 times the miles of the average driver. I think too many times we keep score in terms of electrification by the number of vehicles sold. What's much more important is actually the number of miles driven on the street.
Sure.
And so the next person that you want to switch over to an EV is an Uber driver. And so we're working with many, many partners. Sometimes financing is not available for Uber drivers to kind of switch over their cars. So a lot of the discussions that we have, either with governments or having some of these private-public partnerships, is how do we get financing and, of course, the recharging infrastructure into cities to allow for this transition that we're trying to drive so aggressively.
Sure. And I know we're almost out of time, but I would be remiss if I didn't ask about that human sort of job loss impact that could affect drivers.
Yeah.
So, how are they responding to this approach?
Well, so far, the number of AVs that we have in market are very, very small compared to the number of humans. We've got over 8 million drivers and couriers around the world. The number of AVs we have, you can count on the hundreds. But this is absolutely a bigger theme as it relates to AI and potential job loss. And while I don't think that it is going to be a headline concern for the next 2-3 years, it will absolutely have an impact. And I think it's incumbent upon companies like ours and governments, et cetera, to really think about how do you reskill the workforce as this AI revolution comes. The good news is that actually, I do think that AIs can also revolutionize the education system. And so I do think the tools that you have available to reskill are better than they ever have been, but it's going to take a lot of work for us to get there.
Yeah, well, I appreciate your leadership on this, your candor. And for those of you who don't know Dara's mantra, it's do the right thing.
Absolutely.
Period. So we are going to hold you accountable to do the right thing.
Thank you. You should.
And hopefully this has given people a little bit more insight and maybe a little incentive to try a driverless Uber.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dara.